Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on Introduction to the Data Innovation Program for Academic Researchers. My name is Anne Greenwood. I'm the Education and Training Lead for Population Data BC, and it's my pleasure to introduce our presenters for today. Kim McGrail is a professor at the UBC School of Population and Public Health and the Center for Health Services and Policy Research. She's also Director of Research for UBC Health and the Scientific Director of Population Data BC and the Health Data Research Network Canada. Her research interests are quantitative policy evaluation and all aspects of population data science. Kim is Deputy Editor of the International Journal of Population Data Science, the 2009 to 2010 Commonwealth Fund Harkness Associate in Healthcare Policy and Practice, the 2016 recipient of the Cortland Mackenzie Prize for Excellence in Teaching, the 2017 recipient of a UBC Award for Excellence in Clinical and Applied Research, and in 2019-2020 participated as a member of the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research Task Force on AI for Health. Kim holds a PhD in healthcare and epidemiology from the University of British Columbia and a master's in public health from the University of Michigan. So thank you, Kim, and welcome. Brittany Decker is the Director of Client Engagement and Service Delivery in the BC Government Office of the Chief Information Officer's Digital Platforms and Data Division. The Digital Platforms and Data Division provides corporate leadership, policy development, and key programs and services that enable government and the public to make informed, evidence-based decisions. She works with both Data BC and the Data Innovation Programs, both of which are focused on the collection, integration, access, and analysis of public sector data, as well as the implementation of the province's Open Data Initiative and the Provincial Data Strategy, for which Brittany is the co-product owner. So welcome, Brittany, and thanks again for being a presenter today. So thanks again, everyone, for attending, and I'll pass it over to Kim.
Great. Thank you, Anne, for that introduction. I think we can go to the next slide. So before getting underway with a bit of an overview, I will just add that I am talking to you today from the traditional and unceded and ancestral territories of the Coast Salish people. And Brittany, did you want to go ahead and jump in here with your introduction there?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I am also presenting today from the traditional and unceded territory of the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations, where I am privileged to work, live, and play.
Right. So what we're going to do today is, first of all, I think maybe it's probably useful to say this. We anticipate that this presentation that we're going to give is going to take maybe 25 minutes or so. And so there will be lots of time for questions and answers, and we recognize that there will likely be some, so please don't be shy about putting those together as Anne described. What we're going to do is we'll go through a bit of an introduction to pop data, just because I'm assuming that many of you who are listening may not be so familiar with Population Data BC. And then I'll hand it over to Brittany for the bulk of the conversation around the launch of this incredibly exciting new program, the Data Innovation Program, a little bit of an idea of what to expect next, and then we'll get to your questions. So with that, we can go to the next slide. And I think we can just skip over this one because we've had the introductions now. So just a bit of background on Population Data BC. I would describe us as a trusted partner for data integration and access. And these what you see on the screen now are our three strategic goals. So just really quickly going through them. One is innovative practices. So we're trying to evolve what we do and the kinds of services we offer in an ongoing way, recognizing that there is always an evolution in the kinds of data that researchers want to have access to and the kinds of services that are needed to support the data use. We are really focused on problem solving, recognizing, and this relates to innovative practices in the sense that many times when we're trying to do something new that hasn't been done before, and there may be a policy that needs to be addressed or some other issues that have to be taken care of before we can get further on into the work itself. And then the third area is partnerships, where we are really trying to mobilize data, and we well, let me put it this way: we recognize that this is a complex ecosystem that we're working in the area of data acquisition, access, and use, and we are a part of that ecosystem. But the way that we will really achieve everything that we all want to achieve is by developing partnerships, and really, this partnership piece is a big thing, a big part of what we're going to be talking about today. So we can go on to the next one, Brittany. So this is just the 4 broad areas where Population Data BC provides services, data access. We perform probabilistic and other kinds of data linkage, so we can integrate new data sets into the system. We have services for secure data storage and archiving. These are provided on behalf of researchers and other kinds of data providers. And that also includes a secure research environment where researchers can actually access and use data in a virtual and safe and secure way. And then education and training unit, as Anne described, which is really just helping to make sure that we make the best use of those data. The origins of POP data really, POP data and its predecessor has been around since the proclamation of the Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Act back in 1996. And we developed these services because we recognize there was researchers, data stewards, and the public that we're trying to serve. So for researchers, there's a lot of, if you're trying to do research using linked data, there was always a lot of wrangling, negotiating for information sharing agreements, getting data, doing the linkage, and so on. And we recognize that it's probably much better, safer, and everything else to do that upfront, one time, create what I would call science infrastructure, and then make that available to researchers. It's a kind of the mantra of allowing researchers to spend more time doing research and less time having to put together the resources that they need to do that. The second motivation is data stewards. We can, by having a research infrastructure kind of setup, we can have a lot more transparency for data providers or data stewards on who is asking for use of what data for what purposes, so they can see all of the data sets that are being linked together and understand all of the broader context in which that work is taking place. And then, of course, the public is an important motivating factor too, because we really have a responsibility to use public data and other kinds of researcher collected data and other data to serve the public good and to advance our understanding of health, well-being, and the functioning of societies in general. So we can go next. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a background on our partners and funders, former, present, and in-kind funders. So these partners, again, this kind of speaks to partnership. A lot of the funding comes from places where there's actually a partnership embedded in that. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that I'm going to highlight the Ministry of Citizen Services, because this is the partnership that really is the focus of today's discussion. So this has been, as I'm sure Brittany will talk about, several years in the making. It really is a deep involvement with both the Brittany's group and Population Data BC to deliver to you the kinds of services and new opportunities that she will now describe. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Brittany.
Thanks so much, Kim. And yeah, I just want to start by acknowledging thank you to all of you for coming today. We're really excited to finally release this program and make it available to academics across the board. We've been piloting it for a little bit, but now being able to open the doors, it's been a tremendous effort by a number of folks, including some academics. And I can't see the attendee list today, but if you're out there, just want to give a shout out. We have been consulting with peers and colleagues from the academic community for the past 3 to 4 years in building not only the data innovation program that launched for government access, but knowing that we were going to open it up more broadly to academics. So right from the beginning, it was really important to have the user voice at the table. And so there's been a few individuals, Dr. Hutchin from UBC, Dr. David Green from UBC, Jennifer Zwicker from Calgary that have probably dedicated more time than they would have liked to informing the development of this program, but just really wanted to start by acknowledging that effort by folks in this. So if any of you in previous years have tried to get data from the BC government, we acknowledge that it's been challenging. Government has vast amounts of data, which we know is a crucial resource for decision making. You know, every ministry, every body collects and manages its own data. And we know that this comes with time-intensive resource demands and is difficult. So, you know, as Kim mentioned, gosh, 3, 4, 5 years ago, government said, okay, how do we get together and make this easier? Like, we can't even share data well and efficiently between ministries. How can we be expected to share it efficiently outside of government? And that's where the data innovation program really came in. It came in to address issues that hindered sharing, like uncertainty about privacy and information sharing rules, increasing, you know, the perception of the increased risk of information incidences, you know, the requirement for information sharing agreements and project level PIAs, which could take years and years. You know, there's conflicting priorities amongst data holders, so integrating data becomes challenging, and in general, just combating a risk-averse approach to data use and innovation. So this has meant that policymakers, decision makers inside of government, and also academics have limited access to good information about whether the government data. And so we said, let's develop a central data integration and analytics program for government that will streamline access. And we always knew that expanding this access would also come with partnering outside of government, because there is a value proposition for government in realizing that and leveraging the expertise of academics to inform the policy decisions of government. And so when we devised the program, we said, okay, who can we partner with to deliver this aspects of it? So we're really proud to be partnering with Population Data BC and the I feel like we say 20 plus years, but I think we're getting more to like 25 plus years in the business that they have and the expertise and working with and also representing the academic community. And so we are leveraging that expertise and that well-established program components for data linking, housing management, you know, the provision of the secure research environment. We use their DAR Online tool and different project tracking tools. We are also partnering with BC Statistics and the BC Stats, and they help us with the data access pre-reviews and also manual output checking, which we'll get to in a little bit. But we all know it comes down to the data. So I originally, when I was doing this presentation, had data coming further down the line, but we basically know that's what everybody's interested in. And so I would thought by just starting with this slide before we get into a little bit more of the eligibility criteria, just putting it out there that this is the current data holdings for the data innovation program. And there are some stars next to some data sets. And that was a special piece for those of you that came today. You're getting a little insider information. Those data sets are still in processing production. So we're still working on ingesting them. But all of the other data sets that you see listed here today represent the current holdings of the program. So you can see we have health and demographic information, education and social data, justice and transportation, and work and income data. I will say that the program is constantly identifying and bringing in additional data and ingesting it to make it available as part of its core collection to be accessed both by government and academic researchers. All of our data and the associated metadata is required to be published for transparency purposes. And so the BC data catalog and the websites at the bottom there will give all of the metadata associated with these data sets. So if you're looking for particular files or specific fields that might be available when evaluating, hey, is my research project even possible? We have published everything, so you can go in and actually search, give me all the files that have age or, location or some other field that you're looking for to make it easy for you, because we know that integrating data is of primary importance in giving a full picture of someone's life trajectory or experience in different programs or along different policy lines. So leaving this up here for a second, because like we said, this is probably the candy part of the presentation and the piece that'll be of most interest. So happy to come back to it after. And again, everything's published except for those ones that you will see have stars on them because they are currently in process. Okay, moving forward. So linking data with the DI program data, wanted to bring this up right at the beginning because this is probably of interest for folks on the call. So for researcher collected data, obviously in the data innovation program, we bring data in and make it part of our core collection. That data is there then available for integrating and use by others, for government and academics. But we also have a different type of data. We know that there is researcher collected data, and we know that researchers would want to bring in this or their researcher collected data and link it with what data is in the data innovations program's core collection. And so we do enable that. Obviously, there's some criteria involved in that. And, when we get further down into specific use cases or further along, we can have those discussions. But essentially, data must have been collected in a way that enables sharing and reuse. So right off the bat, and that really comes down to how the data was collected, whether there's a collection notice that went through it or whether it was under the tripartite agreement and part of your ethics certificate. And then also we would look at, there has to be an agreement between the owner of the data and the data innovation program that enables that sharing. So what that would do is we would have an agreement that says, okay, you can bring it into the DI program, you can link it with the data that we have, and you can use it for the purpose of your project. So all data that comes in does not have to be part of the main collection. We do have a pathway for you to bring it in and to link it with data for your specific purposes. And I think we're holding questions till the end, but happy to answer additional questions on that regard. So going back to the beginning a little bit with the data innovation program when we started, and so we took a look at enabling legislation. And so the biggest enabling legislation that we have in British Columbia is either FOIPA or the Statistics Act. And so the Data Innovation Program uses the Statistics Act to operate, but we're compliant with FOIPA. So the Statistics Act authorizes the collection of the information for the purpose of statistics. It confirms what activities we are able to do under the Act. It prohibits the disclosure of identifiable information. Big difference here between the Statistics Act and FOIPA is that we also have to protect not only personal, but organizational information as well. We utilize Section 3 of the Statistics Act to make users temporary employees, and we do this through an engagement agreement. And the Director of Statistics is the statutory authority under the Stats Act. So all data requests are ultimately approved by the Director of Statistics. And this is also where we get some streamlining in that once data is collected under the Stats Act and becomes part of the Data Innovation Program, we have delegated authority over its approval to be used. And so if certain data sets have a secondary approval, but for the most part, there's only a single approval needed, and that's from the Director of Statistics. We built the program also based on the 5 SAFEs framework, heavily used in a lot of Commonwealth countries, primarily looking at UK and New Zealand's model, but it's based on safe people, safe projects, safe data, safe settings, and safe outputs. Again, safe outputs is slightly different than perhaps what you're used to, either previously working through pop data or working specifically with government, with ministries to get data directly. But starting with safe people, this really comes down to the eligibility criteria. And so for academics, it's a formal appointment, an employee or a grad student of a registered Canadian institution. Main contacts and team members are required to do the oath of secrecy under the Statistics Act, and this is for life. So you only have to do it once. Even if you do, 10 projects, you only have to do it once. You have to take and pass the DIP privacy training, and you also have to sign an engagement agreement. And that engagement agreement really stipulates the terms and conditions of data access and use. So very similar to the typical researcher agreements that you're used to. The privacy training, the engagement agreements are all modeled after Pop Data and Health's existing ones. And so very similar, slight nuances and differences that are needed under the Statistics Act, but very similar experience than you may be accustomed to. Safe projects. Projects must have a clear public benefit, must be publicly funded. Projects must have an ethics certificate and be peer reviewed. So again, similar eligibility than that you are accustomed to with Pop Data's existing program access pathway. Safe data. This is really where we leverage our partnership with Pop Data as well. So all program data is de-identified. No users will have access to direct identifiers. Data is classified according to the program's specific schema. And so in the metadata, we do transparently publish the classification. So you will see right off the bat if something is research content or it is not. And the big difference is that with the data innovation program, you are getting a research ready collection. So there's no cohort creation or field selection. So typically, I think in the past, you may have had to fill out checklists of I would like fields A, B, C, and D. In this case, you are asking for the entire MSP data file, and you get the whole thing. And so right off the bat in the metadata, you can see which fields are classified as research content and will be part of that release and part of that data package coming to you. Safe settings, again, leveraging the expertise and the environment of Pop Data. And so all safe analytics happen in Pop Data's secure research environment. Two-factor authentication is used with a YubiKey that provides access to this virtual environment. And the physical, technical, and procedural controls are in place and provided by Pop Data to prevent unauthorized access as well. And safe outputs, this is a little bit different. And so as part of the 5 Safes framework, because there is the release of larger amounts of data up front through research-ready collections, safe outputs really ensures that data has been anonymized and remains to be de-identified, and also meets the minimum statistical disclosure controls on the back end. So when you've completed your analysis and you are ready to export your findings out of the environment, it goes through an automated scan, and then it goes through a manual scan that's done by our partnership with BC Statistics. It may sound challenging, but I will say that we have service standards in place to make sure that this happens in an efficient manner and that all outputs are approved. And so along that, process and timeline. So this is what we found with our pilots and our average. There's always exceptions to the rule, and we will do our best to communicate those exceptions up front. But generally what we found is after submitting the online data request. And so again, we leverage Pop Data's DAR Online tool. And so when you log into Population Data BC's site and their DAR Online tool, you will see a triage pathway now that will guide you through. If you're an academic and you're looking for data and you want to apply to a specific program, it will guide you through which program, and then you log on. Pop Data also provides accounts for that tool, and so that's a fairly seamless process as well. Once you submit your data access request, we usually are processing approvals anywhere between 2 to 8 weeks, and it really depends on what data you're asking for. If the data does not require secondary approvals, turnaround is usually within 2 weeks. But if it requires, if any of the data sets require the secondary approvals, then it can take up to 8 weeks in addition. And then we usually have project team access set up within 2 weeks as well. But again, it relies on the project team to complete their oaths and their engagement agreements. So depending on how long that takes folks, usually when you submit your outputs for output checking, you will hear from the team within 3 days. And if there's no problems, they're processed within 5 days. If there's any discussion, then that goes back and forth with the project team until that question is resolved. And of course, we do have pre-publication review processes in place, and the average is 3 weeks as well.
Thanks so much, Brittany and Kim, for an excellent presentation. Lots of information that I know a lot of people are very interested to know about and to probably ask more questions. Anything else, Kim or Brittany, you'd like to add, just in terms of what people should, if they want to follow up, they can contact you. But is there anything else, just in terms of highlighting things that they should know about or that you'd like to share before we sign off?
No, just really looking forward to seeing more projects come in, but also hearing back on folks' experiences, always looking for room for areas of improvement. So, we've just put this out on the websites. We've just started some of these processes. So if you're looking for information and can't find it, or if you are struggling with something, please let us know, because, we always want to try, one of the goals is to try to make this easier and more efficient for folks. And so your feedback is always welcome.
And I'll underline what Brittany said, and then just say this is not intended to be the only time that we have this kind of conversation with the research community. And as Brittany has already indicated, this is evolving pretty quickly. So I would say keep track. And if you have particular data sets you'd really like to see as part of this, I know that's one of the things that the Brittany and her team would be really open to hearing. So thank you for coming and showing your interest, and please share this widely with your colleagues and others who you think might be able to take advantage of this.